My name is Vanessa Oliver. I'm a registered dietitian with the UKHR Health and Wellness Program, and I'm coming to you from the Food Connection Kitchen, where Chef T and I will be doing a little bit of a demo for you, enjoying some dishes that you can create when it's super hot outside and you don't really feel like cooking. But before we really get into it, I want to just ask you all a question, those of you who are watching live, and we're just sort of curious, what has been your favorite CSA experience? Put that in the chat if you don't mind, what your favorite vegetable has been or what your favorite recipe has been. And if you could just put that in the chat, that would be great. While you're doing that, just want to do a little bit of housekeeping too. Remind you that we are recording this demo so we can send it out to you later on after we've got it all zhuzhed up for you guys. So with that in mind, please remember to stay muted during the duration of this presentation, just for everybody's ability to hear and understand what we're doing. If you do have any other questions besides answering the question that I just gave you, go on and stick that in the chat, and we've left a little bit of room for Q&A at the end. So we're going to be able to get to those questions for you if you have questions about vegetables or recipes or storage or how to prep something, or if you have like this thing on your counter and you have no idea what it is and you can't tell from the list that the sweet farmers gave you with your CSA share, you can always let us know and we're happy to help you out with that as well. As I mentioned, since we are recording this, we will be sending out the link to the video as well as the recipes to everyone who has registered for this program today. I just want to get a little bit into the UK Health and Wellness CSA voucher program. I think a lot of you probably have come to us as being part of that program, but we're in our 7th year of offering these vouchers to UK employees on a health plan, which is amazing. We started back in 2016 with a pilot study of 200 people, and this year we have more than 800 employees on a health plan who have taken advantage of using this voucher toward the purchase of a CSA from one of our 11 partner farms taking part in the CSA voucher program. Some of you may have noticed that we took a big jump this year and went up to 11 farms. And so we're really happy to be able to offer this for you all today. All right, let's see if we have any questions in the chat. If you do have anything, any technical difficulties, we've got the lovely ladies of Kentucky Farm Share Coalition, Katie and Natalie, who are with us today. So they'll be able to help you if you drop a question in the chat and are having issues. Just let them know. We do have some background noise. We're in a working kitchen. So if you are having any difficulty hearing us, go on and turn the volume on what you're listening to us on all the way up, and that will probably help. Okay, looks like a lot of you are using the 69% of you are using the CSA voucher, if my distance vision is correct. So that's great to hear. I'm so glad that so many of you have been able to take advantage of this wonderful benefit for employees on a health plan. All right, well, if no one has any questions, I just want to float a little resources toward you before we get started. We have a lot of recipes on the UK Health and Wellness blog. You can always join the private Facebook group, UK Employees with a CSA, where I post a lot of different resources as well as links to blog posts as they go up twice a week. I've started a CSA 101 series, which tells you everything you need to know about a particular vegetable, with nutrition information as well as storage, prep, and usage tips, and lots of links to recipes, both within our blog and all around the interwebs. And then you can also follow us on social media on Facebook at Eat Well Dietitians, and you can follow Chef T and all of the good stuff she's going on with Food Connection Kitchen, with UK Food Connect rather, on Facebook. And then lastly, we also have a new evergreen CSA voucher program webpage for you to check out. It's got links to the blog I just mentioned, link to our YouTube playlist. It's got years of videos. You can see me with lots of different haircuts. So please feel free to check that out. And I'm going to hand this over to Chef T, and she's going to get you started with a beautiful borscht soup that's going to be chilled. So you guys can stay cool in the kitchen. Chef T.
Thank you, Vanessa. When Vanessa and I were talking about doing this demo, we were tossing back and forth ideas, talking about what might be available at this time of year that you might be getting in your shares, that you might be seeing at farmers markets, that your neighbor might be bringing over and leaving on your porch. And when we tossed those around, I was like, you know, it is hot. Even as a chef, I don't like heating up my kitchen. And frankly, the thought of eating anything hot just does not appeal to me right now. So we decided to kind of take the heat out of your kitchen when you are looking at your shares. We wanted to give you some ideas for some things to do that do not require any cooking, or at least require a little bit of prep cooking, and then you can just toss everything together cold. So I am going to start off with this chilled beet soup. It is based on a borscht that you would see in Russian, Polish, Lithuanian cuisine. This one is not going to be pureed. A lot of the recipes out there are, but I thought, let's keep it simple. Let's keep the dishes down to a minimum. And this is going to be a little chunky. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take a couple of these green onions. We still have these coming in right now, though you may also see some candy onions. And then also we're getting into the bigger storage onions, which have to be cured before you buy them, so that they'll last through the season. Well, they'll last for the rest of the year, basically. So I'm just going to chop up this green onion, and I'm going to slice it across very quickly into little coins. And then I don't want these big chunks. I don't want my chunks that discernible. So I'm going to take my knife, put the tip down, put my hand on the back of the spine, and just rock it back and forth. Almost a mincing action here, just to get those pieces down a little bit more. Now, we have already, through the magic of TV, prepared our beets. You can prepare your beets any way you want to. We are kind of getting to the end of beet season, but you may still see them in your boxes and in your bags. You can boil them on top of the stove, which would be less heat, although I love a roasted beet, and that's
It concentrates the flavors.
Concentrates all the flavors. You're not diluting it at all, although boiling is faster than roasting a lot of the time. If you are grilling out a lot right now and your coals stay hot, you could throw them in a foil pouch and throw them on the coals for about 45 minutes for great big beets, which is probably what we'll find right now. And then let them sit in there, and all you have to do is let them cool, and then you peel them. For this recipe, you can shred them up. Now, if you're going to puree your soup, that's perfectly fine. You will then just cut it into chunks, and you don't have to worry with all the grating. All I did for the ones that I have prepared here, I boiled those, peeled them, and then just used a box grater standing right here. Just grated them down. You can also use a food processor with the grater blade on it as well. So I've got the green onion there. I'm going to reserve just a little bit of that.
I think it's cool, Tanya, that you're using the white part and the green part of the green onion. I feel like sometimes people don't know that you can use both.
Yes, and there is you have almost a white onion flavor, kind of an intense white onion flavor in the white part, and it's a little milder when you get toward the green. So I do like to use both pieces. I'll even cook with both parts as well. And then I've got, I love that smell. That's the summer smell right there, is a fresh cucumber. I'm going to taste a little bit just off the end, because when you get this hot, the skin of cucumbers can get really bitter and really tough, but this is really nice and still sweet. I'm going to swallow it just to make sure, but I'm going to chop this up into a very small dice. So I'm going to split this in half. That gives me two really flat surfaces, very stable surfaces, and then I'm just cutting those into thin little strips. And I want fairly discernible chunks of the cucumber by the time we get done. So I'm just going to cut across those strips, and that way I get these little rectangular pieces of dice. Green veg on a green. Normally, I don't like using the whiteboards because you can't see anything now. I think I've I've camouflaged all my green that I've got here.
Is there a particular kind of cucumber that you like for this kind of dish?
Well, I just picked up some of the pickly cucumbers that are around right now because they're smaller, they're sweet, the skins are usually thinner, but I mean, we used to just grow cucumbers. They weren't Persian. They were, I don't even know if I knew the variety of them, and that's what I would have used. But yeah, you could use any variety. I even saw some of those lovely yellow skins.
Oh, the lemon cucumbers?
Yes, the lemon cucumber. They're a little bit smaller. They're a little bit fatter. Those would be nice as well. So I'm going to chop up just for this size. I'm doing about half the recipe, so I'm just going to chop up one of those cucumbers. I have some fresh dill here, and yeah, that is a wonderful smell. Always goes well with beets. I use dill a whole lot with beets. So acid and dill, and that's usually some kind of mixture in some way. So I'm just going to pull off the fronds, just a few. I'm going to save a frond for garnish, and picking those off the stem. Stem is perfectly edible. It's just tough. It has a little bit different flavor. More often than not, we do just pick leaves off the stem, and I'm going to chop this up. If you're still getting fresh herbs, I saw plenty this morning when I ran by the farmer's market, then you want to get those out of the heat as soon as possible. Any rubber band or a tie around them, get that off and stick them down in a little bit of water in a cup or a deeper bowl, something that won't spill over in your fridge, and put it in a place where it won't get frozen if you have some of those really cold spots in your fridge.
I've been running into that problem this summer with the cold spots in my fridge, and I have found that the cheese drawer is a good place if I keep it in a bag with a paper towel.
Okay, bag with a damp paper towel in the cheese drawer, and that way you see it.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly,
it doesn't
right
get
there.
hidden.
Yes.
All right, so that's all the chopping really that I need to do for the moment. And sorry about the fans. Our fan is automatic based on temperature, and on hot days, there's enough of a temperature differential that it tries to come on even when I'm not cooking. So other than our veggies that we have chopped, I have some buttermilk. Yeah, there we go. Okay, I've got some buttermilk right here, about a pint of buttermilk. And you can use water or you can use veggie stock for your base liquid. I've got some veggie stock here. We take a lot of our scraps left over from classes, put it on, bring it to boil, turn it down to a simmer, make sure we have some herbs and some aromatics in there, and let it go for about an hour and then strain it. And we have lots of wonderful flavor there. And then I have some honey. This is a local honey, cozy honey from Midway, Kentucky. A tiny little bit of sugar, and I didn't get myself any salt, but we'll grab it out of there. For garnishing, I have a couple of things. I have some labna yogurt, which is super thick, super creamy. Love that around here. And then a couple of boiled eggs. These are Chelsea's eggs. And I should have mentioned that a lot of our veggies come from Casey County's organic farms. So we're still using local right here today, and some of the stuff that I picked up this morning. So basically from here, we can do this very quickly from here on out. I am going to make sure you can see me toss this together at this point.
I see that you got a towel underneath your cutting board, Tanya. What's the magic behind that?
Well, when you have a cutting board that doesn't have the little grippers on it and it's slipping around, I do have a towel underneath here that is slightly damp. It provides enough friction, so you're seeing I'm having to really kind of give it a push to get it out of the way here. That'll prevent it from slipping around, which prevents any kind of injuries. So that's why I do that. So I've got my pan here. You don't have to use a pan. You can put this right into a pitcher if that's what you wanted to do. But I'm going to go in with my veg stock. I know that if you're following along with the recipe, and I kind of took a look at that last night and went, I wonder about that. She says that you should boil your water and then cool it down. We were trying to find out. We were like, well, we don't understand unless your water is not very potable. Why you do that? But it is the opportunity. If you had some mushroom stems, or if you had some herbs, or a piece of carrot and celery left over, and you weren't going to use it, throw it in there. Make your own little veggie stock. It's always wonderful. So that's a quart of that. So we're going to use half the amount of buttermilk in here, and buttermilk adds a slight bit of acid. And I don't know about you, but I always love acid with beets. So from there, then it's just a matter of sticking to it.
It's muggy out
It's a little humid. So I'm going to go ahead and add the beets in first because we want to start getting that beautiful fuchsia color going on. This is about 3 large beets. You can also use whatever combination of small, if you find the smaller beets, maybe about 5 to 6, depending on their size. I'm going to stir that in and we get that lovely color. It just is a beautiful color. And then I'm just going to take my onion, the cucumber, and a little bit of the dill. Go ahead and add that in and stir. I'm going to just give this a pinch of salt. Bad about not measuring, but you could start with, if you wanted to measure, you could start with like half a teaspoon. And I'm going to start with about a 1/4 teaspoon of this, since we're adding sugar and honey here. And it really depends on your beets, how much of it. Some beets are, especially when you get the little ones, they're super sweet. I probably wouldn't add very much at all. And also kind of depends on the acidity of your buttermilk too. Now, if your beets are super sweet and you're like, whoa, I need to balance that out, you can always add a little more of acid. So with some lemon juice or a tiny bit of your favorite vinegar. So I'm just going to stir that up. That's so fast. And voila, I'm going to give it a taste to see if we've got everything balanced. Well, that's actually really nice. A little bit more salt. The onion is really rounding out all those flavors. Oh, and it's so light. So serving suggestion would be to ladle it into a cup or bowl. You may have to clean around the edge with this because you know how beets can get.
So Tanya was gloved up while she was graining these beets.
I typically do, because even though it starts out a fun, bright fuchsia color at first, then it turns brown. So I'm going to do a little bit of our labna. Let's see if I can get a little cannelle off here. It's so thick. And I've got those boiled eggs. I'm just going to do a little quarter right there. A little protein added in. And how lovely is this fresh dip?
It's so pretty.
Close so you can get that. Just, I mean, who wouldn't want to try something that's beautiful? Right. Well, Vanessa, I am going to clear out of here. All right. And I know you've got quite a bit coming up.
Excuse our quick change here. So I'm going to start today off with a quick chopped vegetable salad with Asian flavors and marinated tofu. Now you could use whatever protein that you like. I just happen to be using tofu. That's what they call for in the recipe. Certainly some chicken breast would be perfect in here. Or even if you wanted to go a slightly different route and put like edamame in there, if you're getting some edamame soybeans in your share. But this recipe, sorry about that, is from a cookbook that some of you may know. It's the From Asparagus to Zucchini cookbook. This is a wonderful guide to cooking farm fresh seasonal produce. It's put out by the Fair Share CSA Coalition, who is really the pioneer of offering CSA sort of farm shares to workplaces in this country. And we've learned a lot from them. And this cookbook is really just an evergreen. It's organized by vegetable. And the 2 recipes that I am working with today do come from this cookbook. So The first one, like I mentioned, I'm going to be doing this sort of cabbage with soy dressing. It's very simple to do. Sorry, So this is working with a Napa cabbage. I don't know if any of you have maybe seen this in your share. It's an Asian type cabbage. If you can't find it, certainly a Savoy cabbage, which looks like a green cabbage, but is kind of curly, would also work very well in this recipe. If you have a mixture of greens such as tatsoi or bok choy, that would also work in this recipe. You could even sliver up some kale, and that would be delicious in this too. So really you're looking for a cabbagey type, heavier green, and it's going to be a raw preparation, so you're not going to have to cook it. And this really just calls for kind of chopping the cabbage. So whatever you feel like would be an easy kind of mouthful for you. Okay, and I'm just going to do a little bit here because again, I'm not going to be making the whole recipe. That might be a little bit challenging for me to eat all in one sitting, but this recipe does serve 4. And I'm just going to go on and toss that in my bowl here. I also have some tofu, as I mentioned. So this is an extra firm tofu. I really do like to use this for a salad preparation, or if I'm stir frying or grilling tofu. You do want to get that extra firm variety. If you're ever purchasing tofu as a sort of a dairy substitute in sort of a salad dressing or a smoothie, then I would get a silken tofu. And there are lots of recipes that do specifically call for silken tofu in a soup or salad as well. So if you notice that it has that designation in the recipe, there's a reason. So this one does call for extra firm. What I did with this is I steamed it for about 10 minutes as per the recipe, and then just did a quick marinade. The more time you can have tofu sit in a marinade, the better. It's like a little sponge. It's going to soak up all the flavors that you put in there. So if you ever feel like tofu has been bland in the past, I really do recommend doing any kind of marinade. This one is a soy sauce, sesame oil, and a little bit of crushed red pepper. So they're not really exotic ingredients here. Sometimes people might add a little maple syrup. I've seen people put a little liquid smoke or hot sauce, sriracha. Just think of the flavors that you like, and that tofu will soak it right up. So I'm going to go on and add this to my cabbage as per the recipe. Ooh, got a little, there we go. Didn't want to go in there. And then I've also got some green onions. Again, this is the white part that Tanya was showing you before. I've cut these in lengths that are about 2 inches long, just for a little bit of textural interest. Okay, and it'll go nice with the slivers of the cabbage. So I'm going to put that in there. I've also got some matchstick carrots. And I should mention too that all of the produce that I'm using is local as well. I went shopping at the farmer's market to get all of these ingredients, except for the tofu. If anyone knows about any local tofu that's around, please let me know, because that would be amazing. I've only seen it in Louisville. To do a matchstick carrot, really similarly to how Tanya was doing the cucumber when she created that flat surface, you do want to do that on anything round, so it's not kind of shuffling around the board on you. So that would just mean putting a little slice in there. You can have that as chef snack, or just add it to your matchstick cutting. And then from there, you can go on and create planks in your carrot. Okay, and from there, you're going to go on and stack up your planks and create matchsticks. You can make them as fat or as thin as you want. You just want to make sure you keep your fingers out of the way, and then you've got those really nice cuts. So I'm going to go on and put that in my cabbage as well. You can see the colors are starting to get really pretty. I've also got some beautiful purple bell peppers. So this recipe does not specify what color bell pepper. I went for purple because why not? Purple is awesome. So I'm just going to throw in some of those as well. Purple bell peppers and green bell peppers pretty much do taste the same. Once you get into the orange, the red, or the yellow, that's when they're going to get a little bit sweeter. Adding some green onion here also. And then I've got some dressing ingredients that I'm going to get. So this again is going to really just echo the flavors of the marinade. I've got a little bit of lime juice that I'm going to squeeze on here. And a good tip if you are using fresh lime juice, and please use fresh lime juice, is you will take your lime or whatever and just roll it on the cutting board while it's whole. And that will help loosen up the juice sacs in there. So you're going to be able to squeeze your lime just a little bit easier. And I've got some minced garlic. Here we are. This is, of course, local garlic too. And I actually have a little bit of a mixture of garlic scapes, yes, and regular garlic. And I'm going to show you what those scapes look like in just a second. But I just added a little bit of garlic. I'm going to add a little bit of sugar here. That's optional if you want. And then again, echoing what's in the marinade. So a little bit of soy sauce, a little bit more of sesame oil. I'm going to add some sesame seeds for a little bit of extra crunch. You can see how that's looking really pretty. I've got some tongs back here somewhere. And I'm just going to give this a toss. And you can see how quickly that comes together. I know there is some chopping involved. When you're using local ingredients, of course, you're going to want to chop them up. If for some reason you were doing this in the wintertime, but you're like, man, I really wanted to use some, something a little bit easier, and I just can't find any local cabbage. Of course, you can find some pre-cut. Of course, we wouldn't be exactly the same, but it's always good to get some vegetables in there when you can. So I'm just going to go on and plate that up. Make sure that I've got some tofu right there at the top. You can see all of the different, it almost looks like little croutons, doesn't it? And I'm going to go ahead and garnish this with a little bit of scallion. So super easy, lots of protein from that tofu, lots of fiber, vitamin A, vitamin C from the cabbage and the carrots. And this is going to be a great lunch or dinner. So I'm going to transition to my second recipe right now. Lots of moving parts when we're doing these demos for sure. All right. So are there any questions in the chat? I'm not sure I can see any. Anyone has any, our lovely Kentucky Farm Share ladies will let us know, of course. I see that there's a poll up there right now. Oh, it's still the UK voucher program if anyone's using the voucher. Awesome. All right, so I'm going to get into now another recipe that doesn't take any time and also uses a lot of local products. I've got, it's going to be a summer bread salad. Sometimes this is called panzanella, if anyone has ever heard of that before. I know that Chef T has done quite a lot of panzanella recipes using all different kinds of bread. Panzanella basically just means bread salad. The pan part in there means bread. You can use anything from cornbread to pita bread. Today I'm using a focaccia from Bluegrass Baking Company. But any sort of bread that you love would be great in this. I will say it's good for it to be a little bit old. If you've got some bread on the counter that you bought locally and you feel really bad about because you haven't used it, go on and use that bread for this salad, because the older the bread, the more it's going to soak up the flavor. So we're looking for dry bread here. All right. What else I've got going on is probably the cutest squash I've ever seen in my life. If you can, they're so tiny. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So this recipe does call for baby zucchini that's like kind of chopped up, but when they're this small, you don't have to do anything. Honestly, like I started taking the tips off. You don't really have to do that. That's up to you. So I'm just going to toss in a few whole because that's how I'm rolling today. I've also got some beautiful local cherry tomatoes from Salad Days Farm. Those are going to go in here. You can see that I'm kind of eyeballing this recipe. We've got measurements for you, but I can tell you that it is really difficult to not make this recipe well. I mean, if you've got these ingredients, oh my gosh, it's all going to taste so good. So I'm putting in a little bit of tomato. I've got my bread that's already torn up. You can see here that even tearing it up beforehand is going to help dry out the crumb a little bit. So it's going to soak up that dressing even more. And that's one focaccia, makes a lot of bread. So I'm just going to put in probably about half of that. So it's already looking really pretty. I've got some Kalamata olives that are just chopped up. I'm just going to add a few of those. I'm going to add just a little bit of garlic. And I told you I'd show you those scapes. So some of you may have seen these in your share, especially earlier in the season, and been like, what the what? What am I supposed to do? What now? And I know that all of the farmers are so good with making sure that you can identify your produce, and especially if something is a little bit maybe different or new, they're going to give you recipes to do that. And I was really excited to find garlic scapes this late in the season.
This is late. Yeah.
I know. I got those from Elmwood Stock Farm on Saturday. They're beautiful and tender. So you do want to make sure, you can usually look at the sort of end. I don't know if it's going to show up on camera. And if it's still that kind of pale green and you can feel that they are nice and tender, then they're going to be really good, even raw. All right. I do cut them up really small when I am using them raw, but you can use them just like you would regular garlic. So what a scape is too, I should say, it's the center stem of a hardneck garlic plant. It's going to have all of the nutrition and flavor as your bulb garlic. It just comes out first early in the season. Okay, so I've got my tomatoes, bread, my teeny tiny baby squash. I'm going to supplement it with a little bit more of this really pretty zucchini. If you are doing raw zucchini, I recommend this size or smaller. Yeah, because otherwise it tends to get just a little bit, needs a little bit of cooking love to really taste good. And then I'm going to add a little bit of crumbled feta, some oil and vinegar. So, I mean, this is so simple. You know, oil, I use red wine vinegar. It's probably the one that I use the most in my house. Balsamic is going to add a different flavor profile. It's going to be a little bit sweeter. Cider vinegar would be similar if you wanted to do that. And then at the end, I'm going to reserve a few basil leaves, but I've got some fresh basil that I'm going to do. You could tear this, or you can roughly stack them, which I'm doing very quickly here, so it's not as neat as if Chef T were doing it. But you can see that I'm stacking, putting them in a stack. I'm going to roll it, and I'm going to cut across that stack. And I probably do this in every single food demo. And I say, that's how you do a chiffonade. So that's how you do a chiffonade. And I'm just going to go on and put it in my salad. I've got some tongs. I'm just going to toss this. Now, I will say this is a great thing to make ahead of time because you'll really allow, like I said, the bread to soak up the dressing, the veggies to soak up all that flavor. So if you're going to a picnic or a potluck, this is really going to hold up well. Absolutely well.
It's great at room temp.
Oh yeah, doesn't it? I prefer it at room temp. Yeah, I like it. I think the flavors come out more when it's not super duper cold. I feel the same way about that cabbage and tofu salad actually as well. So I'm just going to go on and plate that. I want to make sure that you get a little bit of everything. And honestly, you don't have to do much. When food is this beautiful and tastes this good because it's this fresh, I mean, that's it. Oil, vinegar, a little bit of salt and pepper at the end. Got right here somewhere. Got a little bit of salt. Not there. When you're salting food too, it's often good to salt as you go, right? So you're going to salt as you're preparing something, you're going to salt at the very end, and it's going to give you different sort of levels and layers of flavor. So we've got this beautiful big squash. And that's it. I mean, I did those 2 salads in 10 minutes, I want to say. And this is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to making food that doesn't take cooking. It's still going to be delicious. Easy ways to get your protein, your carbs, your vegetables, all those vitamins and minerals and fiber that we're always talking about that are so important. And we will be sending out those recipes to you all at the end of this demo. If you want to get
Everything up into.
yes, this.
Chef T and Vanessa, I'm so impressed. It's exactly 12:50. So we have, I don't think we could have timed that better. We have 10 minutes for questions. So drop those into the chat. These are such beautiful dishes. So we'll be sharing out some photos and the recipes again in an email, as well as the recording. And while we're waiting for some folks to maybe drop in some questions, I just had a few questions for each of you guys that I thought, because good stuff here. You guys are the vegetable whisperers. And just and just wanted to ask you, all these recipes we showed off today don't require, using any not a lot of cooking, right? I mean, Chef T, a little bit of warming on the range for some of the water and things like that, but pretty minimal heat, right? So kind of things you can throw together. And Vanessa, for your recipe with the summer salad, I know you emphasized the baby zucchini because folks are eating those raw, depending on what they're getting in their share. I was just thinking it can be a little bit judgment based, like maybe small to medium, or just maybe why does it matter versus like when you cook a squash or you eat a squash raw? What size are we looking for?
Yeah, that's such a good question. So that's this for scale. Here's a tablespoon. Okay,
yeah,
if that's helpful. So this size or smaller is really going to be best eaten raw, because as the plant develops on the vine, it's just going to keep getting more and more energy from the sun and the water and the soil, and that energy is going to translate into like toughness, right? When we get a lot of energy, we get tough. But this is going to be just a little bit more tender when it's going to be this size or smaller. And so it's just a little bit more pleasant to eat raw. You're not going to hurt yourself if you eat a larger squash raw by any means. I just think that this is going to be a more pleasurable eating experience.
You might have to chew a little bit more.
But, I mean, it's just beautiful and tender. And when you get your food locally from farmers that you know and that you can talk to, you have the opportunity to choose whatever size you're looking for. So maybe you want those big zucchini baseball bats when you're making zucchini bread.
Tons of zucchini.
Tons of yeah. But this is going to be great for a raw preparation.
Okay, awesome. No, that's super helpful to kind of the visual size, right? And there's some wiggle room there too. It's judgment based, but that's why she's going with that size for the salad, just to kind of keep it really tender. And then just in terms of like, if folks are prepping, maybe these are all great kind of lunch recipes. So just wanted to ask you all, like, if we prepped all three of these recipes, like how long might they last? Like, could we eat on these like for lunches for several days, or what would you recommend?
Yes, for mine, and correct me if I'm wrong on yours. Yeah, like 4 to 5 days. So
Yes.
you could prep this up, put them in your containers, stick them in your fridge, and grab it for most of the week. If you prep it on a Sunday, if you like to do Sunday or Monday night prep, you would have it for the rest of the week.
Yeah, these vegetable-based preparations, even for a complete recipe like this, you're going to look at 4 to 5 days, really. And in the case of things that are dressed, like these salads, that flavor is just going to intensify. So you might even notice a little bit of a difference from day to day to day, and you might find that you like it better on day 2 or day 3, and it'll be individualized that way.
Awesome. And then just we covered a lot of storage tips during the demo, but just Chef T, could you just explain in terms of like for beets, like what that main storage tip is if they're getting those in their share, what to do, and if they have too many to use in the recipe, what you might recommend if they want to freeze them or do something like that?
Okay. So for storage right away, if you get greens on your beets or any root vegetables, frankly, you want to take the greens off. The greens will suck the moisture out of the root right away. So separate those. You don't have to get rid of them. You can hang on to them. In fact, you can chop up your beet greens and throw in one of these salad preparations as well. You can put the beet greens in with, as Vanessa was saying, with the herbs, with a damp paper towel in a bag, maybe in the crisper drawer. But the beets themselves, you can just throw in the crisper drawer or in the bottom. It's a storage vegetable in a lot of different ways, in that it stores a lot of energy, and it also can store for a long period of time, especially when you get past the baby beets in early summer, and we're looking at the bigger ones now. Those are going to be pretty hardy. They're not going to lose their moisture. They're not going to get soft as quickly as those little beets. So you do have some time on those. So if you have other more delicate things, you may want to eat those first.
Yes.
And save the beets for later. If you make soup and then you still have a ton of beets, I just love to pickle them. Quick pickle. You can either quick pickle and throw them in the fridge. That will give them 3 to 4 more weeks of life because you're lowering the water activity level in the vegetable enough that bacteria and all the other foodborne pathogens aren't going to proliferate as badly. Or you could go ahead and can them. I do that almost every year here in the Food Connection kitchen as well. They make great gifts.
Yes.
But otherwise, I do a lot of salads with just the raw beet, shred it, and toss it with some other things that you like with beets. Sometimes I do onions, sometimes apple, sometimes carrot. It just depends on what I have. Make a mixture of whatever's in your box or bag. Kind of challenge yourself to throw that puzzle together. And then any of your favorite vinaigrettes, bam, dinner. Again, you're not heating up your kitchen. Other than that, there are a lot of different preparations. If you are going to cook, I love to do beet hummus or a beet mostardo with a little vinegar in that and puree that up, which is a nice little relish on just about anything that you make. And then there are brownies that Vanessa has made in this kitchen.
Yes, actually, if you look on that, the UK HR Health and Wellness blog that I mentioned earlier, and just type beets into the search window, you will find beet brownies, you will find beet cupcakes, you will find all sorts of other beet salads. Yes, so good. And they turn kind of a pretty pink too. So it's almost like a, I don't know.
Like a pink velvet.
A pink velvet. Yes, exactly. Not quite red velvet, but a little pink velvet too. And yeah, I mean, they're, it's still cake, but it's a way to get your vegetables too.
No, that's awesome. Thanks for all those tips. And we have Chef T, your quick pickle recipe from last year, so we can drop a link into that. And then we'll also drop a link in for like the beet brownies. But Natalie dropped in kind of a link if you want to search for it right now. We'll email that out in this week to you as well. And just want to remind folks, if you need to hop off right before 1, we dropped a link into the survey. Please fill that out for us. We'd love your feedback. When you fill out that survey, you have an opportunity to win one of the A to Z CSA cookbooks. So we would love to mail you one of those. So fill out that survey for us. Let us know what you think. Let us know what other demos we should do this season. We appreciate that. And I have just a few more questions for you guys. I feel like you kind of already tackled it on the beets, but I am such a beet lover and I want to like kind of get people on board. It's very polarizing vegetable. For those that are maybe not even beet curious, but beet afraid, like how would you get people into the I tend to recommend like a different variety of beets that are slightly less earthy, like the golden beets or the bullseye beets. And so I just wanted to ask you all, as the vegetable whisperers, like if you're trying to get someone to try beets for the first time, that might be on the fence. For families at home that are trying to get their kids to eat beets, or husbands, partners, all the things, wives to try it, what would you recommend?
I think 2 things come to mind for me. Besides trying the other varieties, like Katie mentioned, so you can find a golden variety, you can find one that's almost like a salmon color, and then you can find one, she called it a bullseye. I've heard it called Chioggia, which is an Italian variety, and it's beautiful, just pink and white spiral in the beginning, in the middle. So maybe something like that will be a little bit milder flavor. But the 2 recipes that come to mind besides the brownies are going to be beet hummus. I feel like that people are always surprised by how delicious it is. And then roasting beets, because you're really concentrating that flavor, that sweetness. And yeah, I mean, from humble beginnings come this beautiful, just sweet, really nice texture. It's not mushy at all. And sometimes you'll see that on a salad with some goat cheese. Yes, I think those are 2 ways I would say.
Roasting salad, I typically convert people to beets who think they don't like them.
Okay. No, that's always helpful. So thank you guys for that. And then just to we spent some time dug deep into the borscht recipe and different alternatives. For the recipe, for the salads you showed off, Vanessa, I mean, those use up a lot of vegetables, which is awesome. Yes. That cabbage salad and the zucchini. Any other kind of maybe salad recommendations or other things that you like to do? What's maybe your go-to, just as we're hopping off here, kind of kitchen sink recipe? Do you use up those vegetables in the fridge? If anyone's feeling the vegetable overwhelm, what do you say?
Oh my goodness, yeah. So I would say starting off, when a lot of people think they don't like salad because it's boring. boring or something. And remember first, the salad does not have to be lettuce based, right? You can see here 2 salads, no lettuce, super hearty and lots of different flavors to enjoy. So you can start off with a sort of a template of flavor. So, you know, with one, I have an Asian style dressing, which has soy sauce and sesame, and you can use any green that you like in there. So as I mentioned, other Asian greens like bok choy, tat soy, or a different kind of cabbage like savoy or green cabbage. Or if you have a Tuscan kale or regular kale, that would also be delicious in this. So maybe starting with the flavor profile, and vegetables are not going to taste bad when you toss them in to a beautiful dressing like that. Another thing that I like to do, this panzanella, you can put in any vegetable that you want. You can add different kinds of onion, you can add different kinds of peppers, different kinds of tomatoes or squash as well. But another thing I like to do also is start out with the whole grain and use that as a base. And that makes it even a little bit more heartier, takes it further into dinner territory. And it's also going to give you a little bit of extra fiber and B vitamins. And then one last thing I like to do, speaking of the beet greens, is puree them to make a pesto with or without basil. And you can use that as the base of a salad dressing. And you can do that with any greens-based pesto. I know Tanya has demonstrated different kinds of pestos before on her demos, but that's a great way just to have vegetables in your salad and in your dressing.
And it uses up a ton.
A
3 to 4
ton.
cups at one. in
Yes,
one go.
it's amazing.
Oh my gosh, these are great ideas. Thank you guys so much. I feel like my brain is just like trying to take in all the information. I know we have Natalie behind the scenes carefully taking some notes. So we'll try to share out some chef tips with this recording as well. So you can have the Cliff Notes version if you wish. But thank you guys so much for joining us today. Reminder to take that survey for us, enter into the drawing to win the cookbook. Let's give it up for Chef T and Vanessa. If you have a little reactions, you want to give them a high five or a thank you in the chat. We really appreciate you all. Thank you guys so much for doing this demo for us, and hope everyone has a great CSA season or a great time shopping at the farmer's market or in your garden. And tag us in what you're cooking. So let us know if you try these recipes, tag UK Food Connect, tag Eat Well Dietitians, and we love your feedback. So thank you guys.
Thank you so much. It's great to see you all.